which players, offense, defense, do you think will begin the season as starters and end the season on the bench or IR?
That's a toughy one. I think, which it's funny when you said this, I immediately thought it was going to be it was either going to be a defensive back, and I just couldn't think of anyone else but Emmanuel Mosley, just because I kind of almost kind of like slipped away just earlier, just 5 minutes ago, just because maybe not necessarily the performance, because I really like Emmanuel Mosley. He's a really solid corner. He could start almost any team.
Yes, he can.
But he's underratedly an injury-prone player. He's tiptoeing that line between an injury-prone player. He's always missing time, and I can already picture when he misses a point in the season where it's October, November, December, where it's like, okay, he misses like a few weeks with his ankle injury, knee injury, whatever the case may be. In comes Emery Thomas, or in comes Jason Verrett, whoever it may be, and then at that point, if one of those guys stake their claim, which it's a decent chance they will be, then the Niners have shown before, like, hey, if we lose a corner or whatever, we're going to rock with the hot hand. They've done that. They did that in the Super Bowl year with Akilla Weatherspoon and Emmanuel Mosley themselves. So this is not going to be uncharted territory for Mosley if that's the case.
Okay, I got more names. And I feel like this is what happened with the Niners last year. Their starting lineup week 1 was way different than it was at the end of the season. It took them a while to figure out who their best players were. And it's sometimes, to be fair, sometimes it's hard to tell in practice because that's not real football. So I got names. First of all, Talanoa. He's going to start week 1. I don't think he's making it through the season as a starter. He's going to get targeted because you don't go after Jimmy Ward. You don't go after Travarius Ward. You don't go after Mosley. You go after the strong safety who runs a 4.6, whatever. Sorry. Then I'm thinking Javon Kinlaw. He probably because of the knee. Sorry. I just don't believe in it. So Javon Kinlaw and then Samson Ebukam. I'm thinking he starts the season as a starter, but by the end of the year, Drake Jackson, Kamoko Toure, they're going to have better players who are probably going to be ready to take a spot. And then finally, Big Slim Mike McGlinchey. I think they're going to try to prove a point. They're going to run him out there week 1. It's not going to work. He's going to be worse than he used to be, which was passable. Now he's going to be probably not even serviceable. And by the end of the year, just like last year, they're going to find someone else who can do the job better than him. So I thought those are 4 guys right there that I think are going to kind of slow the Niners down early in the year. And the Niners are going to have to – now Samson had become a good player, but the rest, non-impact players to borderline liabilities. And they're going to have to find better players. They probably will, like they did last year.
Maybe another Far Cry one I would add would be Elijah Mitchell, and they make tight end prices just because he can probably be the one that stays healthy. And in Mitchell, they realize, you know what? Mitchell always gets hurt. We'll keep him in the second spellback position where we just give him 10 carries. So that way, at least we keep him on and make him more efficient than just run him into the ground for 5 more carries. And now we're losing depth because now we're forced to play Trey Sermon instead of Elijah Mitchell.
No, so doesn't it seem like every single year the Niners starting running back week 1 is not their starting running back week 17 or week 18?
Dude, that's what I'm saying. They have a revolving door back there, man. Ever since Kyle, it's that offense. I can't necessarily blame who they draft too much. I'm sure that factors into it, which is why they want them to bulk in. But it's not coincidence when every single. You mean to tell me that the 18 running backs they ran through, it's all their fault? No, it's something that they're doing there, 1,000%.
Last name, and if this guy's on the bench because he's hurt at the end of the year, disaster. Trey Lance. They got Nate Sudfeld out there week 18 because Lance couldn't hold up behind a terrible pass protecting offensive line. Well, that's on the Niners because we all saw that coming. So, Nate Sudfeld can start maybe one game this year. Maybe one. But I don't even know if it comes down to it, that could be the game that determines the season. So, Trey, you got to be available, man. No pressure. Sean says definitely Kinlaw, but I think Warner's right there. He needs a bounce back season to avoid the decline tag. Yeah, I can see that. I think he will.
I saw that he supposedly started slow, like the first quarter, almost first half of the year. I didn't necessarily see that, but I also didn't see that he was playing like an all-pro level. His second half season was an all-pro level again, for sure.
He was really good against the run the second half of the season. He got good grades. I think what made him stand out the first 3 years was all the plays, all the production on the he was breaking up passes, intercepting passes like no other linebacker in the league. He needs to come back. He needs to bring that back. Maybe that's not sustainable though. Maybe that was all random. Yeah,
he definitely wasn't making those extra playmaking in the pass game at all last season. That's for sure. Yeah, that's a good point.
Jaskell says I would like to compare Danny Gray to another 3rd round pick out of SMU. Okay, Emmanuel, but does not use his hands. Also, Emmanuel Sanders. Manuel Sanders has good hands though. He
That's
does
what
catch the
uses
ball.
his hands.
He does catch the ball with his chest sometimes, but he can catch the ball with his hands. And yeah, I just want to see Danny Gray catch the ball from. I want to see if he can catch Trey Lance's passes. I want to know because a lot of people on this team couldn't do it last year. I'm just saying.
Danny Gray is giving me DHB vibes, Darius Hayward-Bay vibes, which way all you guys are saying. He's a speedster and he catches with his chest because Darius Hayward-Bay could not catch with his hands until like the 5th season in the league. But he still was really good. It didn't stop him. You know, his rookie year, that was kind of bad. You know, he was dropping a lot. But eventually, he still kept catching that way, and he still was a beast as a speedster, getting 1,000 yards.
That's a fair comp. I think Marquise Goodwin.
Okay.
My thing is like people say he's great after the catch. He's a really good after the catch. Well, how come he didn't return? How come he wasn't a good return man in college? He didn't really return kicks. He wasn't particularly great at like Debo. He's great after the catch. He was a monster kick returner in college. Like you were at SMU. You should have been able to do that. I don't know. I'm a little suspicious. He's another one of these like 185-pound wide receivers like Dante Pettis. Like, is that toughness going to translate to the NFL? Or are you just going to be a guy who runs down the sideline and you know, drops some passes, catches some passes? That's my question.
Yeah, speedster wide receivers don't really necessarily typically have like a great shiftiness. And if you can, you're a freaking unicorn.
Yeah, Manuel Sanders was kind of a unicorn, but like they developed him slowly in Pittsburgh. He didn't play much his first few years.
Took his time. He didn't need to. They had Mike Wallace, AB, Hines Ward, freaking Mike. Yeah, they were stacked there.
That's true.
I'm saying like,
Pittsburgh drafted him. Pittsburgh's the best team in the league at drafting wide receivers. They did not draft Danny Gray. They drafted George Pickens instead, who's similar, but much bigger. The coach says most pressure on defense is without a doubt Fred Warner. Coming off a down year, actually had injuries down the stretch, and his teammates are improving. Fred needs to bounce back. Yeah, I mean, last year I felt like there were a lot of games where Azeez was better than him. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah. But that was because, I mean, my favorite game from Azeez was when Fred Warner missed his first game against Seattle, and Azeez was all over the place. My God, that guy was freaking Spider-Man, the way he was covering the field.
He was, right? He was one of the best players in the field.
This was a little exaggerated. Look, Fred didn't have like an all-pro season, but he was still a very elite linebacker, top 5 linebacker. It's just, you know, sustaining all-pro seasons consecutively is pretty freaking tough. But he also wasn't that far away from that either.
The play that stands out for me for Fred Warner on the season is
that deep one. I know what you're talking about. I think.
Which one?
I don't remember the opponent, but I remember it was like kind of deep. Was that against?
No, here's the one I was thinking, because in the last few years, he would always make he had an interception in the Super Bowl. He'd always make a big play on the ball to seal a game. Last year was week 3, I want to say, against Green Bay.
You're right.
And with the game on the line, he like just was out of position just a little bit and let Devontae Adams get behind him for the first one. Like that was sort of a microcosm of his career, just of his season, just a little bit out of position in the pass game. I wonder, was Robert Saleh in his ear before the plays in the past being like, hey, line up, he's going to go in here. Be over. You know what I'm saying? Was he giving him the answers to the test?
Linebacker too?
He was a linebacker coach for Jacksonville.
Yeah, but he also, DeMeco Ryans was
I think linebacker. No, I'm talking about Saleh.
Oh, I know, but why wouldn't DeMeco Ryans do that? I would think
he's not as good at it. I don't know. It's a theory. It's a theory. Like I'm just trying to what variable changed last year? Saleh left. Did that have an effect on the quarterback of the defense, the guy who listens to Saleh talk to? Because you always talk about that on offense, right? Like, hey, McVay was telling Goff what to look. You can really tell quarterbacks, hey, look here, look. Do they do that on defense? I wonder.
Certain times they can cut
Probably they do. Matthew Stevens says, does anyone make the jump from mediocre to great?
All right, who was mediocre last year? Damn, it's a great. That's very rare that happens, but you got to say who's the far cry that would do that to. How about Maurice Hurst? Because he was mediocre and he didn't play nothing. He was injured, and he's kind of a little bit my dark horse again for a second year in a row on defensive line. I feel like he'd be the new Arden Key.
How about Elijah Mitchell? Got hurt a lot, had some good games, but what if he all of a sudden comes in like 10 pounds heavier, durable, and rushes for 1,400 yards? 5 yards a carry. What if him and Trey Lance are really I don't know. What about Elijah Mitchell?
But was he mediocre?
That's a good point. He was better than mediocre. It's true.
He was fairly good. He was fairly good.
Yeah, you're right.
Not pretty good or really good. He was fairly good.
That's
because he was consistent and had some efficiency. Couldn't break a good one. Couldn't break it open. But he was a solid. Let me get 3 to 5 yards running back, and it was consistent.
Yeah, who's mediocre in the starting line? Like Emmanuel Mosley's better.
That's
than
what I meant. Like who's mediocre? The reason you don't get as far as you did last year with the mediocre. If everyone that was going to be Jimmy Garoppolo, no way in hell you're going to make me say Jimmy Garoppolo's going to go from mediocre to great. Who was someone offensive line? Who was mediocre on the
Kamoko Toure.
Aaron Banks.
Kamoko Toure was sort of a mediocre rotational edge rusher for Indianapolis. He could become an impact player for the Niners. I like that guy. Toure.
Okay.
Toure.
I'll say Aaron Banks.
Aaron Banks. Although to call him mediocre after last year is generous. But you're a generous guy.
Pretty generous.